Hello, and welcome back for another Dungeon Master discussion, because the other one got, interest, and people said it was entertaining, so I guess I'll just keep talking. Today, I wanted to talk about something that obviously every single D&D game has, and that is natural 20s, and the best and the worst natural 20s I've seen as a Dungeon Master in years of playing. And I think, for starters, I will focus on, I don't know, the bad ones. Usually good news, bad news. Start with the bad news, right? For that, honorable mention to all of the natural 20s in combat that just, did like 2 damage. You roll the die, you cheer, you have that spike in heart rate and adrenaline and serotonin and everything because you saw the 20 came up, and that means you definitely hit, at least for 5th edition. All the editions, it's definitely a hit, but 5th edition, automatic crit, cool. Take some of the clunkiness out of it. You see that pop up, you are swinging your giant sword or big axe, or you're shooting an arrow or something. Natural 20, fantastic. Your hit connects. It does 2 damage because you rolled the die and you got a 1 and then you double it. Cool. So, yeah, those aren't like thrilling, but I don't think those are the worst natural 20s I've seen. Those suck. No one likes those. And some dungeon masters have like taken ways to get around it, such as like some people homebrew rule of just a crit is like max damage, which that's a little, it's a little much. Some people just say if you get a 1, you can re-roll it on a critical, but, to each their own. Some people just do it rules as written. Everyone has their own way of dealing with that, but that's not really what I'm talking about. I want to talk about the natural 20s that are supposed to be that high moment in the game and have somehow made things worse. Specifically, there are two examples that come to mind, actually both of them from the 3.5 campaign that I've been playing since I started playing D&D. And I don't know if you guys saw my last video, but I play a half-orc wizard who I decided to spec him into like fists and boxing because he's a half-orc. So I was like, this whole character is like fighting with, I'm smart and can cast spells, but also I just like to beat the out of everyone. So we're in town. We had some downtime, joined a boxing match. They explicitly said at the beginning, like, don't kill anyone. Yeah, like, it's a boxing match. We're not there to kill anyone, obviously. Friendly wagers, stuff like that. There's a few tiers of people. So the very first boxing match I was a part of, there was some scrub in town, just some guy who was like, I can throw hands around. This is fine. Quick way to make a buck. Anyway, very first punch, I just right hook, right to the jaw, natural 20. And then for those that don't know, 3.5 has this mechanic where you have to, if you get your critical threshold, sometimes it's below 20, like if you're really good with a weapon, it will go down to 19, and that threatens a crit, or all the way down to, like, I don't know, I think 18 is the lowest I've seen. But anyway, 20, rolled a 20, threatened critical, rolled it again. So to get the crit, you just have to beat their armor class. You just have to like make sure that your next roll also would have been a hit. Then you get to do your crazy damage. I rolled another 20 in a row. So, in 3.5, if you do that, then there's a mechanic that it's optional, where you threaten just an instant KO. I've only seen it twice, which we'll get to. Instant KO, and I was like, oh, I gotta miss. I have to miss, because you have to, like, confirm it a 3rd time. So it's really, really hard to do. And I'm just fighting some peasant. He has like 6 hit points. I could have just punched him out normally, but instead I natural 20, and then since his armor class is like 10, I had to roll a nat 1 basically to fail, and I didn't. And I just KO'd this guy. Not like, oh, he's down to 0 hit points, like instantly killed him. Punched his head so hard, it snapped his neck and he died. Immediately after, the judges were like, don't kill anyone. And I was like, yeah, of course, of course I won't do that. So that was a rough spot to be in. The only reason things didn't go worse was because there was a paladin in our party who was like this was clearly an accident. Like, this was clearly not, he didn't do anything ridiculous. This guy, for some reason, just had a freakishly weak neck or something like that. I can't remember exactly how we got out of it. I think I got second place in that tournament, so all the prize money I got, the paladin guilted me into giving it to the family of the person I killed, and I was like, that makes sense. Second worst nat 20 I've seen. Arguably, no, this is worse. Similar thing where it's that 3.5 instant death mechanic. I've only ever seen that happen where it makes things more difficult. Same party, same character. I'm the Fist Wizard. We have the Paladin and a few other people in our group. Not important to the story. I mean, they are, but I don't want to take the time to explain it. We are set off to capture this beast man and return him to a wizard alive because we need his blood, and he's easier to work with if he's alive. Same thing happened. We go in, the paladin, like 2 rounds into the fight, natural 20, confirms it. Just great sword up through the throat of this beast, breaks the spine, kills it. And we're like, that was the guy? And he's like, yes. And we're like, that we weren't? And he's like, yes, I know. So we ended up having to bring this thing that we weren't supposed to kill, dead, back to this place. And it just ended up making the whole thing much harder because we were trying to use its blood for a cure for something and then ended up, failing. Woo! Anyway, that's another nat 20 that made things just a bit harder than you'd expect from a natural 20. Moving on to the best ones, honorable mentions again to all the nat 20s that the party managed to eke into the fight right at the end. Really dire situations, natural 20, huge damage, KOs an enemy, saves the fight, swings it back in the party's favor. Those are obviously some of the best moments in D&D, and that's why we play. Like, for those moments where we're screaming at plastic dice on the table in our pajamas drunk, that's why we play. But one thing that I can think of that, obviously those are great, but the one thing that really stands out for the best natural 20 was more on the DM side, and it wasn't me. It was that same campaign. I've been playing this the longest, so that's probably why all these examples come from that. 3.5, we were in Rokugan, which is like the Asian Far East setting, and there was an angry mob, and we managed to, our samurai, kind of like paladin equivalent in Rokugan, managed to talk the mob down and gave a great speech. Natural 20, persuasion, all of that. And, that was cool. We didn't get torn apart by an angry mob. But that, not much else happened in the moment. We were like, okay, we talked down the mob. They seemed to kind of understand what we were saying. They weren't totally against us. And it just seemed like one of those things that a natural 20, on a skill check isn't like an automatic resounding success, but it was good. And it was the best we could have done in our, it ended up being a really high roll, but we didn't really see the effects until literally a year later because the campaign got put on hold for a bit. Oh, it was a different campaign. Same Dungeon Master, same 3.5, technically a different campaign. My bad. That got put on hold for a year because, life gets in the way sometimes. So we were playing again, and it wasn't until the end of that session a year later that natural 20, we kind of finally saw the fruits of it. And this is kudos to Dylan, the Dungeon Master, for that, where that mob persuasion ended up being a check that changed the tide of the game later in, where we ended up having to deal with these gangs that had infiltrated the town. And we really were not doing well. We were losing. The gang leader had organized another mob and ended up trying to get them to tear us apart instead of us being able to fight him. But then that natural 20 of the townspeople that we were talking to originally, they ended up joining our side of it and ended up kind of dispersing the crowds. And I thought that was just a brilliant DM setup of anything like that where it's a big moment that can come out later that the players can connect and be like, oh my god, this happened because of our previous actions. Anytime that actions have consequences for better or for worse that they don't have to be immediate, but when they show up and the players and the DM get that thrill of everything's coming together, those are some of the best moments. And that's the reason why that, honestly, natural 20, is one of the best ones that I can think of, because it gave us, we didn't realize how important it was, and then it ended up showing up later and ended up kind of blowing my mind, honestly, because I was like, oh my god, imagine if we'd failed that, we'd be dead. And another reason, that natural 20 saved our lives in-game days later and real life years later for that moment of payoff. That's why I love D&D. Those moments that you can kind of set up and build and build and build, especially as a dungeon master, because you have all the pieces. When you can put something in place and then a month, 3 months, 6 months later, have the pieces all kind of revealed in front of the players. Fantastic storytelling, fantastic role playing, fantastic game design, honestly, even though the game's kind of built as you go. Yeah, so that's really all I had to talk about for today. If you guys have any examples of your best, worst, most memorable natural 20s or critical fails, I would love to hear about them. You can put them in the comments. I'll read them, try to respond, all of that. And again, if you liked the video, if you liked it, go ahead and share it with friends. You can follow Rescued by Dragons on Instagram at Rescued by Dragons, or on Twitter at Rescue Dragons. We also have a Facebook page now, so you can find us there, and on our website at rescuedbydragons.com. Again, my name's Brian. I'm the Dungeon Master for them, and I talk a lot. So, bye.